home stretch. In more ways than one. For this series, these are the last steps I have to do. We are ready to roll once everything is packed, and we have a clear plan to pack everything here. As for myself, I'm already home by the time this goes live, unless you remember in seeing this a week early, in which case I'm preparing to go home. The vacation wasn't that long. Oh, also, I realized something after I uploaded the last video. I forgot to mention, I actually came up with a name I like for this project. The Little Loop Railroad. It's a cute title that I think fits the project well. We are mostly bringing this just as a loop of track for little trains to run around, right? It's just kind of funny that I forgot, especially since I put that in the name of the last video, and I didn't mention it anywhere in the video. Whatever, it's fine. For packing these trains, I actually took a page out of another YouTuber's book. I'm sure many of you know the name Dave, or at the very least, should recognize the name Thunder Mesa. I would say he's a prolific 0-30 modeler, and he has quite the following here on YouTube, and quite the talent. Now, the idea I'm going to be copying from him is one that he did about a year ago when finishing up the Gruesome Gulch Halloween layout. Dave's technique to pack his trains was to take boxes from locomotives or freight cars, fit the trains you need into those, and then cut the interior foam from the box into strips to protect the sides of your cars. It's a simple but clever technique that reuses materials that you should already have. And, well, I've got plenty of this stuff, so let's do this. In total, I packed 2 boxes of trains, and each had their own little quirks. For the bigger of the 2 boxes, I had to worry about the boxcar. The handbrake on the boxcar stuck up way past any other item on any of the cars that I was bringing, and, more importantly, stuck up way beyond the lid of the box. To fix this, I set the boxcar on its side and rearranged all the other cars to best fit the boxcar in that space. I think I did a fine job. For the other box, we actually used something other than the foam inserts that the boxes came with to protect the cars. I'm not exactly sure what this stuff is. My father just had it laying around and said it would be perfect, and, well, I don't disagree. This is a really nice, thin material that feels like it'll provide some ample protection. It wasn't quite enough to protect every part of the cars, though, so we did wind up cutting some extra foam bits for the couplers. The third and final box was the track box. Originally, I had planned to have every curved piece paired with another one of the same curvature, since this would make setting up the layout a lot easier, but we could not find a box long enough to fit the 19-inch curve pairings, so we had to separate those. Fortunately, an old standard Bachmann locomotive box was about the right length for every other piece of track, and with some careful stacking, it did the job perfectly. The box also happened to have enough space left over that we were able to add the NCE power cab, the panel that it plugs into, the power supply for said panel, and the cable for the power cab. We even had some space for some spare rail joiners and track power cords. Before we could put a lid on this, though, we had to make a track power cord that could connect to both the power cab and the unitrack. Now, we had one of these lying around, but we could not find it for the life of us, so in the end, my father and I just cut up one of the many spare unitrack to standard power pack wires that we had lying around. And that's it. I took both of the train boxes in my backpack, since I know I can't keep the trains themselves upright at all times with the way we're packing them, but I want to do it as much as I can for their safety, and it's easier to handle both boxes if they're in only one bag. The track, on the other hand, doesn't really matter as much, so I handed that off to my father since he offered to help me free up a little bit of space, and that's the easiest box to deal with of the 3.
So I just finished editing this intro to the video, and I wanted to drag your attention to the time, and more importantly, to the date. I need sleep, man.
Yo, fair warning, Audio quality gets inconsistent past this point. And thus, our journey begins. The trip has been fun so far. My only regret is that I didn't bring ample tools to edit this video with. My computer isn't the best, and I don't have a proper microphone with me, so you're stuck with this slightly subpar quality for the rest of the video. Aside from that, it has been great. Riding the train to Chicago has given me some much needed relief, and I've snagged some good photos and videos of the journey. I think the funniest thing from our trip was when I tried to set up the Little Loop Railroad in the lounge car of the train. Emphasis on try. The tables were about half a foot too thin to fit the loop, so we had to set up a very simple switching layout. But every time we weren't holding down a car by hand or by snickerdoodle, it would kind of just roll off on its own from the sway of the train. We did get some funny photos out of it, though, and an interesting idea. Someone on the train asked us if we had an even tinier train hidden in Snickerdoodle so that we could have a train, in a train, in a train. We'll come back to that idea in a minute or two. Now, a lot has happened on this trip. From live steam, to ice cream, to medical quarantine. But I'd like to save that for another time. Maybe as a blog post, maybe as a vlog in the future, but right now I kind of want to focus on the model trains, it's kind of why we're here, but also I really do not like editing on this computer. I would much rather be home before I start editing a long video to cover all of my vacation. I happened to get a couple of modelers' souvenirs on this trip. I got an HO hopper for a future channel project, some N-gauge Unitrack for personal use, a tiny Thomas the Tank Engine to use at train shows to satisfy that train in a train in a train idea from earlier, a few 0-30 coaches to repaint and resell, and I think, most interestingly, a kit-boshed 4-door baggage car that I plan to use for my own main model railroad. If I'm lucky, maybe I'll snag something else before we hit the road. But, for now, the show begins. We had a pretty big family cookout on Saturday. Now, not all of my father's siblings could make it, sadly, but 3 of 4 did. And we got a gaggle of cousins to join in, too. In total, we probably had about 15 people make it out. Unfortunately, like on Amtrak, most of the tables were too thin to fit the whole loop. However, we did have this nice circular table that was about a meter wide. Now, there was no room to fit any extra spurs or switches, but there was just enough space to fit the oval. It was an excellent conversation starter. Model trains is a hobby that runs in our family, so a couple of other family members were able to understand some of the depth of this project pretty well. And even for those who didn't understand, they just like seeing the train. I think the thing I brought up most was my struggles with the boxcar, which was honestly kind of therapeutic considering the nightmares from last week's video, but it also really impressed some people. However, Snickerdoodle was certainly the star of the show, with his short stature, detailed paint job, and, of course, cutesy name. Once everyone got around to dinner, the Little Loop made for a nice background piece. The dull chuffing of the engine never really overtook any conversations, but was a nice white noise throughout the evening. And that's it. 1 week of planning, 1 week of panic, 1 week of passage. The Little Loop has done its job. I guess all that's left to do is to figure out what's next, right? Well, it's the end of September. Halloween is right around the corner. I have some plans. Maybe some plans that I can't afford right now, but plans nonetheless. I'd like to take a second, however, at the end of this video to say thank you. The first video in this series has done especially well for the channel. I don't know how well the second one is doing yet, since I'm finishing this one the day before the next video goes live, but the support I've got from the first video in this little series has been pretty astounding for the channel. I'm happy to see so many of you enjoyed this project, and I hope you'll enjoy the many more ideas I have for the future. And thank you for making it to the end of the video, too. I don't know if that really matters for the algorithm or anything, but it's another little way to show support, and it means something to me. But that's all for this little loop series. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Cheers, folks.